Welcome to SDH's coverage of the match of the week on the boys' side between River Ridge and Roswell. Apologies on the technical difficulties that prevented the match itself being released to the network. So we're going to give you a recap of what went down on the Knights side of the doubleheader between the Knights and the Hornets. SDH's match of the week presented by our friends at Kaiser Permanente. Kaiser Permanente, for all that is you. And when you go back and look at the boys' sides on both of these teams, going back to last year, River Ridge made it to the last game of the year. They made it to the 6A title game where they ended up losing to Lassiter in overtime by the final of 3-2. Phil Thomas's squad finishing with a record of 16-5-1. They ran the table in Region 6-0, finishing number 10 in the state of Georgia, according to our friends at Max Preps, 34th nationally coming out of Region 6. 6-1-1 away from home, 0-1-0 on the neutral site, and scoring 61 goals in the 22 matches that they played last season, going 10-3 at home at River Ridge. Now for Roswell ended up the 22-23 season hovering around 500. They were 5-8-2, 2-4 in region play, 3-2-2 at Ray Manis Stadium, 2-6 away from home, and their season ended by hitting each of the columns that you stare at when it comes to wins, losses, and draws. A 2-2 draw with Chambly led to a 2-2 overtime win against Alpharetta, and then Johns Creek, the last game of the year for the Hornets, was a 4-0 loss back on March 28th of last year. So that was how Roswell and River Ridge ended up their seasons back in 22-23. So coming into 23-24, River Ridge had the one matchup against Chattahoochee back on the 6th, the 2-0 win that got their season off and running. And for Roswell, it was the other end of a 2-0 scoreline, where they ended up losing to Milton at Ray Manis Stadium by the final of 2-0 as they were getting ready for the matchup against River Ridge. Both of these matchups were on the 6th, getting ready for the matchup on the 9th. And so your starting 11s, in catching up with head coach Phil Thomas, he had Grayson Van Gilder in net, formation of 3-1-4-1-1. They returned 9 starters from last year's state finalist team. Grayson Van Gilder was in net. The 3 in front of him, Moses Samstag, the junior, Bryce Epstein, the junior, Gilberto Vargas, the senior. In front of them, Yandel Guevara, 4 in the midfield. Peyton Manwaring, and this is going left to right. Peyton Manwaring, the senior, Gustavo Almeida, the junior, Bennett Van Gilder, the younger Van Gilder brother, and Anthony Ruiz going from left to right. Chris Asbridge was in a bit of a supporting role up top at forward, and the top of the spear was Kingston Courts, the senior, as they were getting ready for this particular matchup. For Roswell and head coach Joey Will and assistant Demetrius Cacheras, freshman. That was the one thing that stands out to you in the starting 11. Hamilton Whaley between the sticks. Carson Leatherman, Cameron Ziadini was on defense. Henry Hampel on defense. David Blanton, the recent signee to Georgia State, the senior midfielder. Grayson Rockhill, Owen Krieger, and Kai Jean-Baptiste. Jean-Baptiste, you might remember from the women's game that was preceding River Ridge and Roswell on the boys' side. Kai Jean-Baptiste, Owen Krieger, Grayson Rockhill, 3 freshmen that were getting early season starts for Joey Will and for the Roswell Hornets. Also on board, it was Dylan Murata, one of the senior anchors on defense, to be paired with Jean-Baptiste. You also had Linus Friedel, junior midfielder, Osvaldo Jimenez, the senior midfielder as well, as they were heading into the matchup against River Ridge. And when you look at the matchup, it ended up being 2-0, and it was a goal on the board in the first half off of a recycled set piece. Nolan McClure was the benefactor there. The junior striker got the ball into the back of the net that made it 1-0, and that was the score at the break. And then in the second half, your final scoring of the night would be on a heads-up play that was made by Kingston Courts. Kingston Courts, toward the top of the D in the second half, sends a ball to the near corner flag, and it had a bit of a loop and spin to it. Chasing it down was Moses Samstag for River Ridge, and Dylan Marotta for Roswell. You wondered whether or not the ball was going to go out of play, but as it turned out, there was enough spin on it to where it could be tracked down by Samstag, and Samstag got away from Marotta. Spins, goes inside the 18. Marotta pushes from behind, and there's contact, and the center ref calls for a penalty. Kingston Courts puts it in the back of the net, and that was 2-0. That would be your final offense on the day, but the other storyline involved in this, the red card to Gustavo Almeida early in the second half meant that River Ridge was down to 10, and that they would have to protect that 1-0 lead. It would eventually obviously be the 2-0 lead, but they did a fantastic job of protecting the lead that they had and then eventually getting the other goal on the board. And so it spoke to the substitutes that came in for Phil Thomas and for River Ridge. And it was a great showing with the depth that was on display there by the Knights. Mason Dean in particular, the sophomore midfielder, came in, gave quality minutes coming off the bench. You also had Nolan's brother, Reed McClure. And Nolan and Reed McClure, obviously both juniors, they are going to be causing some trouble against some teams because of the height that the two of them have. Causing problems in the air for opposition, that's going to be something to look at when it comes to the McClures. Armin Kovac also came in, gave quality minutes to help out on defense. And when you look at the starting 11 for River Ridge, Grayson Van Gilder between the sticks. He was challenged a couple of times, came up big when he needed to. Chris Asbridge. Asbridge was important on both sides of play. Once again, Asbridge in the support role behind Kingston Courts up top at forward, and Asbridge got into some empty spaces and was causing problems for the Roswell defense as well. Peyton Manwaring on the left-hand side, the 5'10", 145-pound senior. He really was working his way up and down the left-hand side. He was getting assistance from Gustavo Almeida, from Bennett Van Gilder, who would come and attack Moses Samstag. We mentioned Samstag, who was on the back line, but he would also come in and help out on in the attack down the left-hand side as well. You had also Gilberto Vargas, Bryce Epstein working out on defense as well. On the right-hand side, Anthony Ruiz, although he did get a little bit dinged up, spent some time on the bench in the second half before he came back in to close the deal. Anthony Ruiz, once again, causing problems on both sides, traditionally on the right-hand side, but then when he would work on the left-hand side as well, Anthony Ruiz definitely causing problems for the Roswell defense, for Phil Thomas and their game plan. But you look across the board, once again, the larger message outside of the 2-0 scoreline is playing with 10, finishing the match and playing most of the second half with 10 men, and being able to take those lessons forward about being challenged, being a man down, and working your way through. So quality work for River Ridge, being a man down after the Gustavo Almeida red card in the second half, preserving a lead, extending a lead, and getting the 2-0 win. We mentioned the three freshmen for Joey Will and Roswell High School. Grayson Rockhill, freshman striker, and Grayson, when you look at him, you saw the flashes of brilliance that everyone's associating with him. And also at the same time, you look at and are reminded that someone with as physical a presence as Grayson has, he's still 15 years old. He's got a lot of growing into his body and his ability and his skill set that it's going to be really interesting to see how he continues to grow there, along with the other freshmen that started, Owen Krieger and Kaiser Baptiste. Really going to be fun to see them continue to develop over the next couple of years. Hamilton Whaley challenged as well in a couple of moments. Great piece of gamesmanship that Hamilton Whaley had, picking up the ball and actually handing it to Courts as they were preparing for the penalty kick in the second half. But Hamilton Whaley between the sticks, Carson Leatherman, once again, Ziadini was helping out defensively. Another one that was helping out on both sides of the ball, Henry Hampel. Henry Hampel, really impressed by what I saw from the junior there. David Blanton kept in check by River Ridge. He wasn't really allowed to take his game and challenge with his speed and with his power the recent Georgia State commit. He was kept in check most of the night by River Ridge. Blanton ended up having to be more of a facilitator on the night and helping things out where Roswell's offense was concerned. Dylan Marotta, we mentioned how Marotta, being one of the seniors on the back line, was there to help out with Kaiser Baptiste, the freshman, and it was to see how Dylan Murata could be a calming influence at times for Roswell. Very, very interesting to see how that is going to develop as well for Murata, the senior. Also, Whaley, a senior. Leatherman, a senior. Ziadini, a senior. You have Blanton, obviously, the senior, obviously going to Georgia State. Dylan Murata, the senior, and Osvaldo Jimenez, the senior midfielder that was part of the discussion for Roswell. Also, Parker Leatherman, the younger brother of Carson, getting some work on defense as well. Once again, thanking our sponsors when it comes to the matches of the week and the games of the week. Once again, our friends at Reverb by Hard Rock, mixing it up with coffee, cocktails, beats, and sleep. Perched across the street from iconic Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the heart of downtown Atlanta, Reverb brings you an amped-up guest experience. Come for the rooftop bar with phenomenal views of the vibrant Atlanta skyline and stay for the atmosphere. Also, the game of the week the high school matches of the week brought to us by our friends at Subaru of Gwinnett. Subaru of Gwinnett, located at 2950 Satellite Boulevard in Duluth. Proud sponsors of soccer on every level here at SDH. And we are quite thankful for our friends at Subaru of Gwinnett for Reverb by Hard Rock Atlanta, and obviously our main sponsor, presenting sponsor, Kaiser Permanente for all that is you. With the 2-0 loss for Roswell and the 2-0 win for River Ridge, let's take a peek at their schedules and see how things are laying out down the future for Roswell. After the River Ridge game, they've got a couple of days, and on the 13th, on Tuesday, their next match is at Ray Manus Stadium against Denmark. They follow that up on Friday playing Etowah at Ray Manus. Then they go on the road for 2. It is at Chattahoochee, at North Gwinnett, and then they start region play on February 27th against Lassiter. That one is at Ray Manus Stadium once again. So 2 matches at home, 3 matches of the 5 remaining in the month of February are going to be played on campus. And then you look at the schedule that Phil Thomas has for our friends at River Ridge. After the Roswell match, once again, Tuesday, it is at Blessed Trinity. They're traveling on Georgia 92, and they're working their way toward Georgia 400. They're going to take on BT at BT. Then they host Walton at River Ridge. Then on the 20th, next Tuesday after that, so 2 Tuesdays from now, it is a matchup against St. Pius. Then they go to the coast, an interesting non-region tournament situation. On the 23rd and 24th, Friday, Saturday, back-to-back, it's at Islands and at Richmond Hill. Then they come back to wrap up non-region play at Cambridge on Tuesday the 27th, and then they travel to Tunnel Hill to take on Northwest Whitfield, who will be focused on by us here at SDH with the crossover matchups that you're going to have with Dalton and our friends in Hall County this season. So we're going to keep an eye on Northwest Whitfield. But after the matchup against Blessed Trinity, 2 on the road, then it is 1, 2, 3, 4 non-region on the road, 2 on the coast, at Cambridge, at Northwest Whitfield, and then they start region play on March the 5th against Etowah at Etowah. Region this year, once again, reminder for those of you following along in 6-6A, it is Etowah, Rome, Allatoona, Woodstock, Creekview, and Sequoia, and then River Ridge finishes up their season in mid-April with a match at Buford, and then finishing up with Hillgrove. When you look at how things are for Roswell and region, their region this year, Lassiter, Sprayberry, Pope, Blessed Trinity, Alpharetta, and Johns Creek. They finish up with a matchup on the 9th of April against Dunwoody at Ray Manus. So for Roswell and for head coach Joey Will, it's going to be interesting to see the integration of the freshman faces and see how the seniors are there in region play this year. For River Ridge, once again, they're looking to make it to the last game of the year and win the last game of the year in Class 6A. So they know they've got some work to do, and that non-region schedule is going to be part and parcel to getting them ready, because as what we always say, Season 1 gets you ready for Season 2. Season 1 meaning the non-region schedule. Gets you ready for Season 2, the region schedule, which in turn hopefully gets you ready for Season 3, the postseason schedule, so you can be ready for the last game of the year. So some challenges across the board for both Roswell and River Ridge, and thanks to both of the schools and their administrations for helping us out in being a part of everything when it comes to broadcasting the girls match and giving you the recap here of the boys match here for the SDH high school matches of the week as we complete match week 1 here in our schedule. Match of the week presented by our friends at Kaiser Permanente. Kaiser Permanente for all that is you. Also brought to us by our friends at Reverb by Hard Rock Atlanta. We mix it up with coffee, cocktails, beats, and sleep. Perched across the street from iconic Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the heart of downtown Atlanta, Reverb brings you an amped-up guest experience. Come for the rooftop bar with phenomenal views of the vibrant Atlanta skyline and stay for the atmosphere. And also brought to us by our friends at Subaru of Gwinnett, located at 2950 Satellite Boulevard in Duluth. Subaru of Gwinnett, proud sponsors of soccer on all levels within the state of Georgia here on the SDH network. So for everybody at SDH, thanks for hanging out with us here as we conclude match week 1 in our schedules. Get ready for match week 2. It's going to be a fun one at McIntosh and at Alexander next week when it comes to the activity on the SDH network for the Tuesday night throwdown and for the match of the week. For everybody here at SDH, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for enjoying match week 1. Play safe, everybody. Enjoy the games. We'll catch up with you next week.